Incredible lifeguard saves drowning girl only to discover she's the mafia boss's hidden daughter. Jake Thompson squinted against the sun, the familiar scent of salt and sunscreen filling the air. The beach was alive today, families basking in the warmth, laughter spilling over like waves. But when screams erupted, a chilling tremor shot through him. Jake's heart raced as chaos unfurled along the shoreline. A child was drowning. He plunged into the surf without hesitation, muscles screaming against the pull of the current. The world fell away as he focused solely on saving that life. The undertow clawed at him, but he pushed forward, determined. He reached Mia, a 12-year-old girl, her frantic eyes locked onto his, filled with fear and hope. In one powerful pull, he brought her to safety, her small body collapsing into the sand, gasping for breath. Their eyes met, a spark igniting something deep inside him, a connection that transcended the ordinary. But as the applauding crowd encircled them, whispers began to swirl the name Marino, cutting through the celebration like a knife. Mia was the mafia boss's daughter. Suddenly, the act of heroism turned into a nightmare. Jake clenched his fists, anger rising. How could people cast judgment when he had just saved a life? But that life was intertwined with darkness. Back on the lifeguard stand, Jake felt like a spotlight was shining on him. The gratitude from the townsfolk twisted into suspicion and judgment, turning warm glances cold. He realized their adoration depended on the continued assumption of his moral high ground. His hands trembled as he replayed the rescue in his mind, questioning the purity of his intentions. Was he merely a pawn in a larger game? A silent witness embroiled in a mafia web. With every day that passed, Mia gravitated closer, pulling him into her world. His affection for her tangled with anxiety. He longed to protect her, but how could he reconcile his feelings with the man her father was? Worse yet, Jake struggled against the weight of familial expectations. He had a responsibility to uphold his community's trust, but did that mean keeping quiet about the shadows skirting around them? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jake sat on the lifeguard chair, feeling the weight of judgment and curiosity pressing down like the midday sun. He thought about the families he had always sworn to protect. Who would trust him now? A lifeguard tangled in a mafia-esque scheming embrace. Tension swirled around him as he caught sight of Mia walking toward him, her smile fragile yet defiant, pulling on the strings of his heart. But then a realization hit. Sam Marino loomed in the periphery, and with him came danger and uncertainty. That a chilling message from Sam flickered on his phone: "Stay close to her, and you'll regret it." Jake's breath hitched, the threatening implication hanging heavily in the air. The very trust he had built with the community now lay shattered at his feet, replaced with fears and unanswered questions. As he looked at Mia, her innocence slowly cracking under her father's expectations, Jake felt the storm brewing within him. Decisions loomed large, and with them, the chance to betray everything he held dear. Would he fight for love or forsake it for the greater good? His heart raced further. The tides were shifting, threatening to pull him under, and as he faced Mia with turmoil etched on his brow, he realized he stood at a critical crossroads. Was he ready to navigate the murky waters ahead, or would the darkness consume them both? Jake's thoughts churned like the restless sea beneath him, fashioning a cauldron of fears and questions that kept him from giving in to the current's embrace. Mia stood before him, seemingly unfazed by the weighty turbulence that surrounded them. Her innocent, hopeful smile belied the dangers threatening to upend their lives. But as he looked deeper, Jake saw a vulnerability in her bright eyes, a flicker of understanding that the world might not be as simple as it seemed. That he longed to reach out, comfort her. Each day spent in her presence was a tangled progression through aspirations and doubts. Their conversations had turned into quiet refuge. Yet, with every laugh shared and every secret exchanged, the unyielding shadow of Sam Marino loomed larger in the distance, darkening their newfound joy. The message from Sam floated through his mind, a haunting reminder of the stakes involved. Jake was no longer simply a lifeguard, now he found himself a guardian to a girl associated with untold risks. The moral complexities gnawed at him, a twinge of guilt intertwined with his burgeoning feelings for Mia. Could he dismiss her father's threats in light of her innocence? As dusk settled, painting the sky in hues of orange and violet, Jake found sanctuary in the lifeguard tower. He could see her from afar, Mia playing with her friends. Laughter erupted, but he felt far removed from it, his chest tightening with every joyous yell. The juxtaposition of her lightness against the darkness that awaited them created a tempest in his heart. He needed to decide, was he strong enough to defy a powerful man for her sake? That night, as he lay awake in his small apartment, thoughts spiraled outward, each scenario playing on repeat: Sam's threats, the uncertainty of Mia's fate, his own safety in jeopardy. Would he be forced into a confrontation with Sam? The idea caused an unsettling stir in his gut. Underneath it all, a revelation flickered. Amid the chaotic weight of the Mafia's looming presence, Jake recognized the potential within himself to act. This was more than a moral dilemma, it was an opportunity for personal growth. He could choose to be the man who protected what was right, rather than hide behind fear or community expectations. Maybe keeping Mia safe meant diving into the tide's treachery instead of retreating to a false sense of security. The next day, determination mingled with anger and fear as he arrived at the beach. A plan formed in his mind. Engagement was necessary, not just with Mia, but with her father. Jake needed to confront Sam, to unravel the nexus of fear that wrapped around them both. He felt resolved, ready to take action, even if it meant facing the full brunt of the Mafia's force. With each passing moment, his heartbeat synced with his mission, pounding louder as he envisioned the conversation ahead. He would approach Sam, challenge him. The tides had brought him to this point of reckoning, he could no longer remain passive. Just as he set his gaze toward the horizon where power and passion converged, something caught his eye: a figure moving with sharp purpose in the distance. It was unmistakable, Sam Marino himself, flanked by men whose intentions thrummed with menace. Jake felt a surge of energy course through him. It was now or never. The moment had arrived to face the storm head-on, not just for Mia, but for himself. Would he gather the courage to stand his ground against a relentless tide of danger, or would he succumb to the darkness that threatened to engulf them both? Jake stood rigid, his heart slamming against his ribs as Sam Marino approached, flanked by two men whose postures shouted intimidation. Every impulse in him screamed to run, to retreat into the comforting anonymity of the ocean surf. Yet the resolve he'd brewed since the previous night anchored him to the sand, forcing him to confront the very real threat before him. As Sam drew closer, his expression held a mix of amusement and disdain, a predator evaluating the worth of its prey. "So, the lifeguard thinks he's a hero now," Sam announced, his voice smooth yet cold. "Do you know what happens when little boys play with fire?" Jake swallowed hard, trying to project confidence he didn't entirely feel. "Mia deserves better than the life you're offering her," he articulated, each word painstakingly chosen. He could feel the weight of his own challenge, the enormity of it wrapping around him like a vice. This was not just about Mia, it was about him taking a stand, stepping into a role he never intended to play. Sam's laughter ricocheted through the air, harsh and mocking. "You really think you can protect her? I own this town, boy. No one stands against me without paying a price." The threat was implicit, yet Jake could hear the subtle crackling of power within Sam's voice, an acknowledgement that Jake embodied an unexpected reckoning in his carefully manicured existence. Something sparked deep within Jake. He felt a shift, a rush of self-awareness mixing with indignation. Maybe this was the moment he'd been waiting for, not just to save Mia, but to save himself from a life of inaction. He took a breath and planted his feet in the sand, a grounding gesture in the face of overwhelming odds. "I may not have power like you, but I'm not afraid of you. Not anymore." Probing silence followed his declaration. Jake felt the tension crackling between them, as palpable as the storm threatening to roll in from the sea. He studied Sam, the man who operated on waves of fear and power, and in that moment, he recognized his own worth. He was more than the lifeguard tethered to a chair, he was someone who could no longer pretend he didn't have a stake in this battle. You think your bravery can shield her? Sam spat out, his face darkening. You have no idea the dangers that lurk behind that innocence. Then let us talk about it, Jake pressed, his voice steady. Let us end the games. The challenge hung in the air, and Jake could see Sam's surprise flicker. Something behind the mask of confidence faltered. Without expecting it, Jake realized he had taken the conversation deeper, escalating it toward a clash that felt inevitable. Jake's mind raced, calculating the nuances of risk management. This wasn't merely about Mia, but about standing against brutality and fear. He felt his instincts sharpen. If he could carry this momentum, he could perhaps shift the tides in his favor. He watched as Sam's jaw clenched, the flicker of annoyance revealing the cracks in his intimidating facade. Sam stepped forward, closing the distance. You think I will let this go? I don't expect you to, Jake shot back, unwilling to back down. But I'm not going to let you pull her deeper into your world either. As he stared into Sam's steely eyes, an invigorating wave of determination washed over him. He wouldn't let this be just a warning. He envisioned a plan, a dialogue that could reveal the complexities of Sam's empire. The air crackled with expectancy, pressure swelling painfully within Jake's chest. Would this turn into a fight one he wasn't quite sure he could win? Or could it blossom into an uncharted territory where he discovered just how strong he had become? Before either man could back down, a distant siren wailed, breaking the tense standoff. It was a reminder that life moved on, just beyond this confrontation. The world would not stop for them. The moment hung like a damning verdict. Jake knew the confrontation might bring heavy consequences, but he felt alive with purpose, cradling his newfound strength. Yet, beneath the surface, doubt still festered. Could he maintain this resolve in the face of inevitable retaliation? As Jake stared down the very real threat, he realized the battle was only beginning. A decision loomed over him. Would he simply react, or could he navigate this tumultuous path with strategy and insight? Would he discover the hidden depths of his own capabilities, or be engulfed by the storm he dared to challenge? With the siren fading into the distance, it became clear that the tides of his own destiny were shifting. Jake would need to dig deeper than he ever had before if he truly wanted to fight for Mia and himself. It was time to draw lines, both in the sand and in his heart, and as his eyes flicked back to Sam, he felt the tension, the pull of fate aligning with a dangerous opportunity. The stakes had never been higher, and Jake was ready to find out just how far he was willing to go. The roar of the ocean faded into a muted background hum as Jake felt the weight of Sam's steely glare. Time itself seemed suspended, stretching out as he surveyed the landscape of their confrontation. His heart pounded, but in that moment, a new conviction blossomed within him, one that transcended fear and pushed him toward uncharted resolve. As Sam took another step forward, menace radiated from his frame. Yet, instead of shrinking back, Jake stood taller, focusing on the ground beneath his feet, the grains of sand a testament to his grounding presence. This was no longer just a confrontation about Mia, it was a pivotal moment in which he felt his identity slough off the layers of doubt and concealment he had worn for too long. I know what you're really doing, Sam, Jake said, his voice betraying none of the fear that twisted inside him. You treat this town like a game board, moving pieces around like pawns. But you've left a trail of destruction, and I want to let you add Mia to that list. Sam's lips curled in a derisive smirk, a reaction Jake instinctively realized was both a dismissal and a caution. Do you really think you can just walk in here and play the hero? What will it gain you? You think you understand the game? The words echoed in Jake's mind, lingering like the smell of salt in the air, a challenge that clawed at his insides. Suddenly, he could feel the adrenaline coursing through his veins, igniting a fire within him that was becoming impossible to extinguish. Maybe I'm not trying to play it your way. Maybe I want to upend the entire board. Something shifted in Sam's demeanor, and for the first time, Jake glimpsed uncertainty flickering behind the hardened demeanor. He took a chance, stepping forward and lowering his voice. I know the people in this town. I know their stories and the sacrifices they've made. And I'm not afraid to expose you. Confidence surged, illuminating the contours of his resolve. With that admission, Jake noticed a growing distance between them, an invisible line drawn in the sand. He wasn't just confronting San Marino, he was confronting a part of himself, the part that had always hesitated, waiting for someone else to take charge. The air between them thickened, and Jake could sense the tides of power changing. The distant siren continued to wail, a reminder of the chaos that lay beyond their conflict. He felt the churning energy of the ocean, the waves crashing relentlessly against the rocky shore as though they were urging him forward. Expose me? Sam scoffed, but there was a hint of nervousness now. You think that will end well for you? Jake wasn't naive enough to think that exposing Sam wouldn't come with consequences. Instead, he recognized that facing this daunting challenge required more than mental acuity. It required strategic risk, emotional fortitude, and a deep understanding of human nature. I'll do whatever it takes, Sam, Jake asserted. His words hung heavy in the air, his adrenaline-fueled conviction bolstered by sheer will. This was turning into a mission of more than love, it was a journey to reclaim his own narrative, the story of a lifeguard who dared to take a stand. Realizing that he was living precariously close to the edge, Jake mentally curated a strategy. He needed to gather information, genuine insights into Sam's operation, the ripple effects of his control, and especially any weakness he could exploit. But there was an unquantifiable aspect: he needed allies, people willing to stand with him rather than cower before the underbelly of fear that Sam thrived on. As Jake watched Sam's expression shift, calculating, he recognized this was just the beginning of a larger play, a game of not just chess, but one that would require a mastery of emotional intelligence and tactical maneuvers. Would he step back into obscurity, allowing Sam to maintain his grip, or risk it all to pull Mia from beneath the surface of Sam's malevolent world? The stakes had inched higher, and a sense of urgency coursed through him. He no longer saw himself as an outsider, he was in the game, and it was time to learn how to play it better than anyone had before. But even as he fortified his approach, the question remained: how deep did Sam's reach extend, and what could he unearth that would turn the tide? As he prepared to take another step forward, the realization hit him like a tidal wave: unveiling the truth may not be enough. He would need to summon every ounce of courage, calculation, and intuition he could muster to survive this storm. Determined, Jake braced for whatever confrontation lay ahead. Because now, not only was it about protecting Mia, it was about forging a new path for himself amidst the chaos of a world he had never fully engaged with. And as he prepared to face Sam once more, Jake felt the shifting sands beneath him remind him, this was no longer just about survival, it was about reclaiming his identity. But even as he plotted his next moves, a haunting thought whispered to him: would the truth he sought be more dangerous to unveil than the lies he confronted? The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting long shadows that seemed to echo Jake's internal turmoil. Each heartbeat thrummed a resonance of purpose, the determination to not just protect Mia but to understand the depths of the power Sam wielded. The lingering tension from their confrontation forced him to face the myriad of choices ahead. Realizing that information was his lifeline, Jake committed to a path that demanded not just courage, but insight. That he started by collecting stories, small, fragmented pieces of the lives woven into the tapestry of the town. The local diner became his initial haunt, a sanctuary where old-timers reminisced over coffee, and whispers carried more weight than laws. He charmed the waitstaff with his easy smile, but his mind was a ferocious engine, laboring to extract truth from anecdote. Each bite of information garnered added to a burgeoning tapestry that slowly clarified the undercurrents of Sam's dominion, but Jake's resolve to protect Mia had its own gravity, and each conversation helped elucidate not only her situation but also his own evolving narrative. Transcending the role of just a lifeguard, he viewed himself as an investigator, peeling back layers of impacts Sam had across the town. The realization that Sam's power was tethered to fear struck him. Fear silenced the town, yet he could feel it igniting a spark of rebellion within himself. It wasn't just about facing the immediate threat, this was a calculated effort to reshape the community's understanding of power dynamics. An unexpected conversation with Eliza, a single mother who once worked on the docks, shifted his perspective. "What you see is just the shadow Sam casts," she said, eyes downcast, stirring her mug contemplatively. But there are those willing to rise, needing just one person to take that first step. Her words reverberated within him like a call to arms. They echoed his burgeoning realization that he might not need to navigate this battle alone. He pondered over her insights later that evening, drawn into reflection by the relentless crash of waves outside. With each pulse of the ocean, Jake made a mental inventory of potential allies, weighing their willingness to dance with danger against their fear of reprisal. The reality was stark: he would need to bolster his resolve with strategic alliances, people ready to reclaim their voices alongside him. That he began drafting a plan, carefully outlining his approach to rally support. He envisioned small gatherings, a coalition of those with shared grievances, yet he knew he had to tread lightly. This delicate balance between ambition and the risk of exposure echoed in his mind as he pondered his next move. It was crucial that Sam remained unaware of their plans. With every encounter, Jake would have to be both transparent and deceptive, a master of persuasion. The next morning, armed with a deeper understanding, he approached Mia. She belonged to this narrative now, with her own strength, and it was pivotal for him to share the truth. "Mia," he started, his voice steady but intense. "I need your help to pull this town back from the brink. We can change the rules." Her brows furrowed, uncertainty clouding her features. "Jake, you don't know what you're getting into." "No," he replied firmly, "but I'm willing to find out." The connection between them crackled with potential and uncertainty. This hesitance bred a tension charged with unspoken fears and hopes. He understood that revealing his intentions would be a risk, but it was a necessary one to forge trust. He needed her to see this was more than a battle against Sam, it was a fight for their identities, for the life they dared to claim. As the conversation unfolded, the realization hit Jake. It wasn't just about merging their strength, it was also about revealing both their vulnerabilities. In this partnership built on trust, they could redefine their stories, reshaping their world with each decision. But as their plans began to crystallize, a foreboding thought prickled at Jake's consciousness: would their motivations to unveil the truth illuminate a way forward or expose them to darker threats from Sam's world? The foundation was set, but the path forward was fraught with peril, and Jake felt the looming presence of Sam, watching, calculating his next move was imminent. Jake's resolve solidified overnight, each pulse of the ocean that night whispering unrevealed secrets. The uncertainty in Mia's eyes persisted, but he understood hesitation was a catalyst for growth. It threatened to suffocate his ambitions, yet it also provided clarity. Failure, Jake realized, wasn't an option. Gathering his thoughts, he committed to arming himself with all the knowledge he could muster and cultivating a network that could potentially defy Sam's iron grip. At the diner, he transformed into a sponge, absorbing tales that shaped the town's psyche. Regular patrons shared fragmented, piecemeal stories about Sam, revealing the domino effect of his authoritarian rule. Each conversation was a calculated risk. Not only did he need the town's secrets, but he also had to ensure his inquiries didn't draw unwanted attention. With each new face at the counter, he adjusted his tactics, gathering intel under the guise of friendly banter. One afternoon, he lingered over a cup of coffee, drawing on the insights of Eddie, an ex-con who returned after 6 years. Eddie's disillusionment dripped from his words. "Sam ain't just a bully, he's a cancer. Cut one part out, and he grows another," he declared, eyes like hardened stone. Jake absorbed this information like lifeblood. Sam's control wasn't merely brute force, it thrived on isolation and despair. This lit a fire in Jake. What if he could disrupt that cycle? He realized the challenge wasn't just to rally allies, it was crucial that they all understood the stakes involved in resisting fear itself. He didn't need a weapons cache, he needed a shift in narrative, a reclamation of their dignity. He made a list he would soon share with Mia, a collection of potential allies. Eddie became the first name under strategic allies. He was the harbinger of experience and had insight into not only Sam's operations but also the myriad reasons people stayed silent. The next day, he approached Mia with the list. "This is our starting point," he insisted, the urgency palpable in the air between them. "Each of these people has a story, but they also have stakes in this fight. They need to understand that standing up can mean claiming their lives back. Mia examined the names, her brow furrowing further. Jake, you can't expect them to risk everything simply for a glimmer of hope. You're expecting them to expose themselves, to cater to some abstract idea of freedom? No, I'm asking them to reclaim their identity. This is about them, not just us. We can't let Sam dictate our worth, he countered, steel in his voice. She held his gaze, searching for cracks in his resolve. Jake felt the weight of her scrutiny. It was one thing to believe in his own narrative, it was another to convince her to embrace theirs as a collective. Just as Mia lowered her eyes, contemplating, Jake realized the immense challenge ahead was not only the fight against Sam but also to unlock a shared courage dormant in those around him. He felt it rise within him, morphing from ambition into duty. That evening, buoyed by newfound determination, he devised a more defined strategy. He planned to call a meeting, discreet but potent, where stories could intertwine to form a tapestry of rebellion once more. Jake closed his eyes, grappling with self-doubt, understanding peril lurked in every step. A misstep could lead to exposure. Within that painfully aware moment, the darkness of his task pressed against him. In his pursuit to bring about change, how far was he willing to go? The realization struck hard. This wasn't just about the town, it was about carving out his identity from the shadows of fear that consumed them. At the precipice of that decision lay a question that now engulfed his thoughts. With every ally he enlisted, every empowered voice he ignited, would it merely provoke Sam's wrath, or could it catalyze an inevitable change? A sudden chill swept through the diner, breaking his concentration. The door swung open, and the energy shifted. Instinctively, his gaze flicked to the entrance. A familiar figure entered, a sinister smile gracing the lips of Sam's enforcer. "Should we be worried?" he asked, scanning the room as if to mock Jake's small gathering of courage. A heavy silence ensued. The stakes had just been raised. The tension in the diner crushed against Jake like a weighty fog. Sam's enforcer, a hulking man known as Rocco, prowled with unsettling confidence, his gaze locked onto Jake. The air around them crackled, filled with unspoken threats and buried resentments. Jake choked down his instinct to flee. Maintaining composure was paramount. He squared his shoulders, defiance simmering beneath the surface. This wasn't just about him anymore, it was about everyone who felt the suffocating grip of fear, a collective burden that rendered them mute. He couldn't let Rocco's presence stifle that burgeoning courage. As familiar faces turned wary, Jake calculated his options. He had planned to draw from the strength of their shared stories, their silent histories, but the sudden intrusion could unravel everything. "What's your business here?" he asked, leaning into Rocco's intimidating aura with a steadiness that surprised even him. Rocco's grin widened, revealing a jagged edge, as he leaned against the counter. "Just passing through, Jake. Heard there's a little gathering happening." His tone dripped with sarcasm, chilling any notions of security Jake had clung to seconds before. Vulnerability flickered in Mia's eyes as she stood behind the counter, her knuckles white as she gripped the metal edge. Jake needed to distract Rocco, draw attention away from the other patrons. He could feel their anxiety, a shared heartbeat of unrest. "Maybe we could help you." "What do you want?" he pressed, careful yet probing, searching for cracks in Rocco's facade. "Help?" Rocco laughed, a sound devoid of real amusement. "Yeah, that's rich. You think you're some kind of hero around here?" He scanned the diner with an exaggerated sweep, then turned his gaze back to Jake. "I'd suggest you learn your place. It doesn't pay to rock the boat." Jake inhaled sharply, that heat of resentment welling up yet again. "I'm not trying to be a hero. I'm just trying to give people a reason to stand up for themselves. Maybe you should pay attention, too. Things could change around here." Rocco's smile faltered momentarily, a flash of uncertainty crossing his features before the familiar arrogance returned. "Change? You think you can change anything? You're just a kid who doesn't know what's good for him. Just remember, Jake, I'm always watching." Everyone is. As Rocco pushed away from the counter, Jake felt the wall of dread retreat, if only a little. He had surprised himself. The fear that had wrapped around his spine dissipated, replaced by a fluttering sense of empowerment. The conversation spilled open pathways he hadn't realized existed. The idea that confronting Sam's cruelty needed to begin with layers of individual bravery. Once Rocco exited, leaving the diner enveloped in a potent silence, Jake turned to Mia, her brow furrowed with worry. "What if he tells Sam about you?" she whispered, trepidation lacing her words. "That's a risk we'll have to figure out how to mitigate," he replied, the certainty in his voice masking the trepidation building inside. The truth hit hard. He had a choice to make. He could either let fear stifle the small resistance he envisioned or embrace the discomfort and drive his plan even further. Mia's eyes flickered with possibilities. "Maybe it's time to push back, not just against Rocco but all of them. We need to meet our allies." Jake nodded, spiraling thoughts racing into motion, knitting together ideas. Rallying those with shared memories of suffering could kindle a flame, one that could not only challenge Rocco's feigned authority but draw the others from their isolation. With resolution fueling him, Jake envisioned a circle not of fear, but of shared courage. As they left the diner, the streets appeared more daunting than before, yet the shadows seemed less consuming. If the darkness bore the weight of secrecy, perhaps they could shine a light through it. What he didn't anticipate was the ripple that might follow their gathering, the bridge it could build or the demons it might awaken. With this newfound resolve lighting his path, Jake turned to Mia, ready to embark on the next step, but a new question loomed: what would be the point of no return in rallying the voices of the silenced? The sirens of change were ringing, and confronting Sam was no longer an abstract vision, it was becoming an imminent reality. As Jake stepped forward, the echo of Rocco's threat still loomed over him, the air thickening with the weight of the choices ahead. Jake and Mia walked briskly through the dimly lit streets, the chill in the air sharpening their senses. Each step felt heavy with the weight of unseen eyes. Jake replayed the encounter with Rocco in his mind, analyzing each word, each undertone. What he had done took courage, but it was still just a flicker, and he feared it could be snuffed out easily. "We should try to gather everyone at the old warehouse," Mia suggested, her voice steady. "It's out of sight, and we can talk without anyone breathing down our necks." Jake nodded, impressed by her practicality. "We'll need to be discreet. If word gets back to Rocco or Sam," he didn't finish the sentence, letting the implication hang thick between them. Fear and adrenaline surged simultaneously. The stakes were incredibly real now. Meeting their allies in secret made sense, but Jake faced an inevitable personal dilemma. His innate desire to stand up against fear conflicted with the daunting reality of the power dynamics in their world. Could he truly rally these people? Would they believe in his vision? As they reached the abandoned building, a long-forgotten relic that represented both dereliction and hope, Jake's resolve began to solidify. It wasn't just about standing up to Sam or Rocco, it was about transforming resentment into action. Failure could lead not only to personal ruin but to the collapse of their fragile gathering. Suddenly, each face in his mind their struggles, their past grew, parents and siblings, dreams and despair mingled into one communal objective. Time seemed to slow as he pushed the door open, the sound of creaking wood echoing in the emptiness. A flicker of rusted machinery and scattered debris surrounded them, jagged reminders of a previous time. The sight stoked a sense of urgency within him, the need to create something new from the ashes of their old fears. "Make sure everyone knows not to talk about this where anyone can overhear," Jake said, mentally noting the vulnerabilities they faced. His heart raced, grappling with the looming questions of leadership, skill, and trust. What if they looked to him for more than just inspiration? Mia fished her phone from her pocket and started messaging their circle about the meeting. Jake's mind raced. He had to prepare a message that resonated, one that not only acknowledged their grievances but also stirred hope. His fingers twitched with anxiety as ideas churned. "Jake," Mia's voice pulled him from his tumultuous thoughts, "what if they don't show? What if they think it's pointless?" Her straightforward approach fed into Jake's uncertainty. "They need to believe that we can change something, that we can carve a path out of this mess. Otherwise, we'll be stuck like this forever. Yeah, but how do you know they'll trust you? You've been doing this alone, Mia pointed out. He felt the tightening grip of doubt. What if she was right? Had he overstepped? Was he even capable of uniting them if they had only known him as a kid caught in fear's grip? I know I can't do this alone. But when they hear how Rocco treated me today, maybe they'll see just how much courage we need to band together. As the first few people trickled into the warehouse, Jake felt his heart race. Their weary faces reflected shadows of self-doubt, fragmentation of hope that danced over the threshold of courage. Would the story of Rocco ignite something within them? Would it push them toward action? Tension coiled in the air, a palpable mixture of anticipation and anxiety. Jake took a deep breath, grounding himself. The time had come to face not just Rocco, but the deeper roots of fear that had rooted themselves in their lives. That he was about to take the stage when the door creaked open again. Jake turned, his pulse quickened as a figure stepped inside. It was someone he had never expected to see, someone whose presence could either be a boon or a catastrophe. Behind her, darkness loomed decidedly sharper. Would this unexpected entrance mean victory or disaster? As the door latched shut behind her, Jake's heart sank. Was this the moment that predetermined their fate? Jake blinked in disbelief as the figure stepped forward, instinctively identifying the familiar features twisted with a mix of confidence and defiance. It was Sarah, a prominent presence within their circle, her reputation etched in whispers and caution. He had thought her lost to the shadows, choosing survival over involvement. Now here she stood, a potential turning point in his burgeoning leadership. What are you doing here, Sarah? His voice resonated with a blend of surprise and wariness. I came to see if what I heard was true. Her expression shifted, determination sharpening her gaze. I heard Rocco's bluff. Didn't he scare you, and that you might actually be doing something about it? Jake had never been sure how Sarah viewed him. Was he an annoyance or a hopeful spark? But her presence ignited something within him, propelling him into that fragile space of aspiration where he might just tap into their collective strength. Everyone's here because they believe, he found himself saying, striving to sound more assured than he felt. We can't keep living in fear. This isn't just about me standing up to Rocco, it's about all of us taking back our lives. Sarah nodded, her eyes flickering past him, assessing the room. The others were trickling in, uncertainty clouding their faces. She cleared her throat, commanding attention even amidst the haze of anxiety. You want them to follow you? You better show them some real courage right now. Her pointed gaze unnerved him, but it also lit a fire. Courage, something he had always wanted for himself but never truly embraced. He needed to embody the change he envisioned. Listen up. Jake's voice rang out, ignited by a mix of fear and determination. He stepped forward, taking the silence as an opportunity to draw them in. I know you're all scared. I'm scared too. But we can't allow ourselves to be ruled by fear anymore. Rocco and Sam don't get to dictate how we live our lives. Heads turned, some faces reflecting faint glimmers of understanding. He pressed on, forging a personal connection. I used to hesitate, thinking it was safer to just stay in the shadows. But today, that changed for me. When I faced Rocco, I realized that fear loses its grip when you confront it. As he spoke, Jake felt the firm grounding of resolve beneath his words. He glanced at Mia, who offered a supportive nod. He could sense her belief in him amplifying his own. We need to band together, strategize, and reclaim what's ours, he urged, the weight of their shared experiences forming unspoken bonds. If we don't do this together, we risk losing everything we care about. The room fell into a heavy silence as Jake's words sunk in. Doubt lingered, but there was a deepening air of possibility. He sought to sway their minds, to awaken the latent strength within them. Together, we can face Rocco and Sam, he continued, his intensity rising. Not just with fists, but with strategy. Every single one of you has something important to contribute. A voice piped up from the back. It was Derek, the quiet mechanic known for his talent in fixing things. What if we turn the tables? Rocco thinks he has the upper hand, but maybe we can catch him off guard. Jake met Derek's gaze and a wave of gratitude surged through him. Exactly. We think creatively. We have something he can't predict because we're not warriors, we're survivors. Our strength lies in our diversity. He felt empowered, as if the weight of the room had shifted. Jake saw people leaning in, the flicker of hope sparking into a flame of determination. It was in this moment of collective recognition, one that could lead to a future shaped by their choices, that he saw the true essence of leadership forming within himself. As he prepared to outline their plan, Sarah stepped forward again, her demeanor commanding. But guts aren't enough. We also need to identify our vulnerabilities. We can't rush into this without knowing the risks. Everyone here, what do you bring to the table? Jake paused, the atmosphere shifting from ambition to realism. He sensed how each voice in the room contributed to the strength of the group. Would this group work together, or would their insecurities unravel the very fabric of what he hoped to build? As Sarah started to draw responses from the crowd, Jake felt a labyrinth of possibilities forming in his mind. But he couldn't shake the creeping uncertainty of what Rocco's next move might be. Would they be prepared for the storm that was about to descend? His heart raced, and the air grew thick with tension. The door creaked slightly in the oppressive silence as thoughts circled in his mind. Could this moment be the beginning of a true awakening? As the last voice echoed, marking the profound shift in the room, Jake realized that everything was about to pivot. Inwardly wrestling with the weight of potential failure and imminent courage, he knew he was teetering on the brink of an undeniable confrontation, one that could end in their salvation or irrevocable destruction. What response would Rocco deliver next? The following weeks unraveled like a tightly wound thread, each day pulling Jake deeper into an intricate rebellion. He became a figure of both hope and conflict, galvanizing a group that was hesitant yet resolute. Together, they began reshaping their narrative, finding strength through dialogue and mutual understanding. In the old warehouse, where fear had hovered like an ominous cloud, camaraderie blossomed. Allies began to emerge from the shadows, each person stepping forth to not only vocalize their grievances against Sam and Rocco but to also share their skills. From mechanics to strategists, storytellers to artisans, a new fusion of talents rapidly formed. Jake marveled at the resolve radiating from his allies, recognizing that courage was not a solitary venture but a collective endeavor. As the discussions intensified, Jake gained clarity about his role within this gathering. He was no longer just a lifeguard, he had evolved into a leader, one who demonstrated resilience in the face of intimidation. Through their shared goals, Jake fostered an atmosphere of trust, where voices that had once been silenced began to resonate with power. Knowledge is our strongest ally, he reminded them during one of their meetings. We need to understand Sam's operations and pinpoint his vulnerabilities. His words ignited the group, and together they began mapping the web of fear Sam had woven throughout the town. Each person's contribution added to a quilt of strategy, a blueprint for liberation. Among those creeping conversations, a pivotal moment emerged when Derek introduced a daring plan. What if we stage a public demonstration? Draw attention to Sam and Rocco, he proposed. If we can showcase unity, we might strike a chord with the townspeople and get them on our side, taking back the power of visibility. A ripple of tension coursed through the room. Jake felt the weight of uncertainty but realized that the risk of inaction loomed larger than the fear of potential backlash. Let us do it, he asserted, a steadfast resolution echoing in his voice. It's time to take our first bold step. As they fleshed out the details, Jake felt his trepidation begin to dissipate, replaced by a resolute determination that underlined the significance of their cause. The day of the demonstration dawned, a day where fear would be challenged, where silence could no longer stifle their voices. Mobilizing the group, they took to the streets, each one of them embodying the change they sought. As they marched down Main Street, Jake's heart thudded rhythmically with purpose. Each step resonated with defiance against Sam's iron grip. The nervous whispers of their community began to morph into supportive cheers, their momentum gathering steam. People who had once avoided eye contact now locked eyes with Jake, exchanging glances of solidarity. As the gathering grew larger, a palpable shift occurred. It was no longer about Jake, it was a collective stand against an oppressive regime. They rose together, flickering embers of hope igniting a bonfire of courage. The moment felt electric, their voices converging into a powerful proclamation of resilience, daring to raise their fists in unity against a common foe. However, lurking behind the scenes, Rocco observed. With Sam's threats looming like a storm on the horizon, Jake felt the swell of anxiety rise within him. However, what lay ahead could either cement their resolve or tear apart the fabric of what they had forged together. Just when confidence began to overshadow doubt, a confrontation jolted the atmosphere. Rocco emerged as a specter from the shadows, flanked by intimidating associates. A palpable tension crackled through the air, the stakes had risen dramatically. "You think this facade intimidates me?" Rocco boomed, his voice slicing through the gathering. "You're nothing but a pack of frightened sheep thinking you can take on a wolf." But instead of recoiling into silence, Jake stepped forward. The crowd instinctively parted, allowing him to stand toe-to-toe with Rocco, heart pounding yet fortified. "I'm not afraid of you, Rocco," Jake declared, his voice steady amidst the cacophony. The crowd held its breath, tension radiating like an electric charge. "We're not sheep. We're choosing to stand united against your intimidation." In that moment, Jake understood, this confrontation was not merely about facing Rocco, it was about affirming their identities as individuals unshackled from the chains of fear. With everything they had been through, he felt an unwavering sense of purpose rise within him. The culmination of their collective courage held the power to challenge the very foundation of Sam's influence. As the two men locked eyes, a flicker of uncertainty crossed Rocco's face, a moment of recognition of the threat posed by this movement. Throughout that exchange, Jake felt an electrifying transformation, his personal evolution solidified in those seconds. In the end, buoyed by each person's resolve behind him, Jake gathered the strength not just as a savior in a sea of chaos, but as an advocate for self-empowerment. He had emerged victorious against the looming shadows, harnessing a voice that shattered fear and created an authentic rallying point for others to join forces. The moment marked a shift in the trajectory of their community, a pivotal surge that pulled them from the depths of despair into a beacon of hope. An unshakable realization washed over Jake. He had conquered not merely the threat that loomed over Mia and the townsfolk, but the deeper fear that had bound him for far too long. In the aftermath of the confrontation, the town began to rally, tales of their resistance echoed through the streets, awakening a spirit of rebellion previously thought lost. With newfound strength, Jake forged lasting alliances with those around him, their bonds unyielding against the tides of pressure. As hope transformed into a rallying cry, Jake proved undeniable truths about the human spirit, that through united adversity, they could cultivate courage as a catalyst for lasting change. And as he stood beside Mia, her warmth dispelling the remnants of darkness, he felt an irrevocable shift within. He was no longer simply a lifeguard, but a steadfast force driving a narrative of resilience and empowerment. Jake turned to Mia. "This is just the beginning," he reflected, knowing their courageous stand would redefine not just one community but himself as well, a testimony to the journey taken from mere survival to a profound reclamation of identity. The sun set behind them, casting a golden glow over the horizon, a symbol of hope. The tide had changed, recalibrating their course towards a future built on the strength of their choices. Now, he had to ensure that this momentum continued. You need to subscribe now to witness the next chapter of personal transformation and empowerment. Leave a like now to support our journey of resilience. Comment your thoughts and theories on this journey, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how courage can ignite change. Don't wait even one more second to be part of this movement.